getting on, as I'm going to ask you a few more questions about this Omniscience deck, because I've seen it seems like a lot of the pro players in the world are gravitating towards this. I know Sean Goodard, a good friend here in England, has been playing this deck, and he's got guides out there and been fine tuning it. Why do we see a lot of like the top level players in the world going towards this deck over, let's say, prowess?
Well, I think, like I mentioned, it is one of the decks that gets to play the 4 copies of Temporary Lockdown in the main deck because it doesn't really play anything that dies to Lockdown. And honestly, the one card in the main deck that gets swept up by the Lockdown is Roiling Dragonstorm. But sometimes there's these interesting spots where if you have a Dragonstorm under a Lockdown, the Prowess decks are playing a lot more copies of Into the Floodmaw these days. So
Mm-hmm.
if the Prowess player bounces the Lockdown, that will give the Omniscience player the ability to draw 2 discard, and if the Omniscience player is missing a combo piece, getting that Dragonstorm trigger off of the Lockdown being removed can give them the last card that they're missing to set up the combo.
All right, well, let's look over on the other side. Going up against Ari. Ari's on nowhere better to describe it than Boris Mice. Talk to me about this deck.
Yeah, when we say mice, we mean mice. So a lot of people who associate Boris, they might think, okay, well, the mice package is just Emberheart Challenger, Hardfire Hero, and Manifold Mouse, and you kind of pair that with like Screaming Nemesis and Hired Claw and a lot of other non-mouse cards. Ari said, no, we need more mice. So Ari is playing 4 Cheeky House Mouse, 4 Flowerfoot Swordmaster, two Seedglaive Mentor, 2 Mabel Heir to Cragflame, and 4 Valley Quest Caller. So this is not like mono red that happens to have some mice. This is full blown mice. And I'm a little bit scared about this particular configuration against the 4 copies of Temporary Lockdown from Grayson's side. But if Ari can get a fast enough start, especially paired with a lot of those lords like the Flowerfoot Swordmaster and the Quest Caller, maybe we can deal enough damage before Grayson can get to Lockdown.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It looks like a really good Bloomborough draft deck. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's like this is what I've tried to do every single time I drafted that set. No one drop though, but is on the play, so that could be key. Being able to be the aggro deck in this matchup, giving Grayson one less turn to combo off. How quickly can he combo off with this deck?
Turn 4. Turn 4.
Oof,
There's
oof.
the setup pieces. You need to find a way to put Omniscience into the graveyard before the 4th turn of the game. He's got a couple of ways of doing that. He has the Roiling Dragonstorm, which is 2 mana, the enchantment that lets you draw 2 and discard 1. He has Afara's Dispersal, which is a bounce spell that lets you surveil 2 for 3, but 1 if it targets an attacking creature. Moment of Truth, look at the top 3, put 1 into your graveyard, 1 into your hand, 1 on the bottom for 2 mana. And then Confounding Riddle, which is like an impulse, but it puts the rest of the cards in the graveyard.
That's pretty scary. Do you remember when Modern was meant to be a turn 4 format? Do you remember when we got told that a long time ago? Modern's a turn 4 format. Is it? All right, we're gonna
And
have
then
a
they
little
gave
bit.
us Splinter Twin back.
Yeah, they did, and now no one plays. Now it is the meme it has always been. Don't come at me, chat. Look,
What if I
go on.
what if I told you that Splinter Twin in 2025 is just Corey Stillcutter and Mishra's Bauble?
I'd believe you. I'd believe you. Every single thing. Here's founding the first paths coming down. Am I missing something? Why has it got a dice for 2 on it instead of 1?
So, founding the third path is not like your typical saga. This one has read ahead. So you can actually choose to skip the level. So the first level is let you cast an instant or sorcery with mana value 1 or 2 from your hand. But frequently if you don't have a spell to cast from your hand, you might just want to skip the chapter 2, and then next turn you can immediately go to chapter 3.
All right, so yeah, this is a little different spin they've put on some of the newer cards, opposed to chapters that we're used to, like Fable, so to speak. This one we can choose which one we need in what moment we want it. We can be greedy and try and take all 3 parts, or we can just do what we did here, take the bit that matters. As now we're starting to go wide on the board. Here comes the mice, ladies and gentlemen. Manifold Mice coming down, just the non-offspring version, so that can get target something, give it double strike or trample. I got to imagine it's double strike in this instance. As then we also get to trigger the Emberheart Challenger, reveal top card. It was a Might of the Meek, but we had no mana. So did we? Oh no, we did have the mana to cast it, so we cast it, right? Am I just going crazy? No, we did. 3 mana. There we go.
Yep.
I got there in the end.
Yeah.
It's Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. I've been up for a while now. It's fine. It's good. We got Doom in the house. Doom's going to be carrying us through this, as we don't have an Omniscience in the graveyard just yet. Is that's good news to Ari, correct?
That is definitely good news for Ari. Yeah, we they're not being in omniscience now. Grayson does have the potential to have either a forest dispersal here, which is a little bit of interaction that lets him surveil, or potentially a copy of Moment of Truth to be able to find a copy of omniscience and put it into the graveyard. But this is a big attack here for Ari. I believe there was a monstrous rage in hand for Ari, and if we have monstrous rage on the challenger with double strike, that's gonna I think believe that's lethal. I can't count that high, but
Well, we've got a Valley quest call on the board, so that gives everything +1/+1 because they are rabbits or bats, birds,
that's
mice. So
8 right now.
1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8 damage. I believe
Yeah.
with this it would be lethal, and yeah, Grace is just like, cool, you got me. Scoop him up. The mice getting
Yeah.
it done.
Yeah, I believe Ari had 8 damage in play, and then the Might of the Meek would have given him an extra 2, which is doubled because it's 1 from the Might, 1 from the Prowess trigger, times 2 is 4. That would have been 12, and Grayson was only at 10, so.
Okay, well, we get to go to sideboard. Nice quick games. And I'm quite happy that mice won. So let's go start over on Grayson's side. Of course, was able to win yesterday. Now trying to run it back here in standard. In the sideboard, we've got some Beza. I feel like I was pretty good. Changing the equation. The card I could not pronounce yesterday to save my life. The Clarion Conquest. Yeah, don't worry about that one. The Day of Judgment, Get Lost, Ghost Vacuum, Voice of Victory, probably my favorite card in the new set. Overlord of the Mistmoors, and Negate. Anything you like here?
Yeah, I mean, Grayson definitely has a lot of options here. I'm not entirely sure how many of these he wants to go towards in a matchup this aggressive. Has options of alternate threats like Voice of Victory, Overlord of the Mist Wars, and Clarion Conqueror. Probably not going to go towards many of those. Something like Beza to help get a couple of blockers in play, a little bit of life. That could be very good, along with the Day of Judgment to help sweep up a lot of those mice. And then potentially something like Get Lost if he wants additional cheap interaction to help handle those double strikers early on.
And over on the other side for Ari sideboard, we have got a Braids, Boris Charms, Get Lost, Lightning Helix, Shard Mage Rescue. Have a quick read of that one. I haven't seen that since draft. We've got Sheltered by Ghost and Witch Stalker Frenzy. Anything in here good? Question
Yeah,
mark?
funny enough, usually in a lot of the decks that are playing white mana, you will frequently see copies of Rest in Peace. Ari decided not to play Rest in Peace today, so it doesn't have any graveyard hate, no ghost vacuums, anything like that. What Ari does have is you could do a couple of Get Losts to maybe kill the temporary lockdowns because you're assuming that those are there on Grayson's side, and that kind of is a card that can get a lot of Ari's battlefield presence away. So probably wants to go towards those, but honestly, past that, I mean, you could consider something like Boros Charm against Day of Judgment, but the awkward part about that is Grayson and most of the Omniscience decks have more copies of Lockdown than they do Day of Judgment, and Boros Charm not doing all that much against the temporary lockdown.
No, yeah, I think I agree with you on that one. I'm looking at like, how much do you respect like a Beza coming down? Can we actually fight through that, or is it better to try and give ourselves like a clean answer, like a Witch Stalker Frenzy, which used to see in some of the red decks? It can double up because of what's the free drop that when it gets damaged they can't gain life or whatever it is.
Nemesis.
It's Nemesis. You got the flip side where even if it's a dead card, I can still do 5 to my Nemesis to do 5 to the dome. In this deck, not got that ability. Is it worth bringing this in to have a nice clean answer, or do you think this deck's just more happy to go wide with it?
I think the interesting thing about Beza is that you have some pump spells to kind of fight through it, like Monstrous Rage plus the double strike on a copy of
Yep.
Emberheart Challenger. That kind of fights past the Beza anyway, so it's not clear whether or not you need to remove it. But yeah, it just feels like that card's a little bit too narrow. Also, as far as removal spells go, the turn like so for those of you who don't know, the Abuelo's Awakening will make the Omniscience into a creature. So theoretically, your removal spell can take care of the Omniscience. But the problem with that, Witchstalker Frenzy specifically, is that it's always going to be 4 mana if you're targeting the Omniscience because it's on their turn. So if you wanted a kill spell for that, maybe you would rather go something cheaper like a Helix or an Abrade.
Okay, interesting. And again, it's interesting. It does make it a creature, but we're off to the races. Both players like the opening hand. Just a land pass on both sides. So again, no turn 1 play here for definitely.
You know
This is not names. This is definitely Ari, not Blake, on the left of our screen.
Whoa, Blake and Will. What? You know what's interesting about the lands that Grayson is playing I believe it's called Mistrise Village. So this is a funny land because it enters tapped unless you control a mountain or a forest. Uh, Will, we're playing a Azorius deck, so that is essentially a glorified island that comes into play tapped, which I always find kind of funny with these Omniscience decks. But it is kind of nice because in against control decks, it allows you to sort of play through counter spells with your Ablazel's Awakening.
And, there's no harm to it, right? Like I say, we're not really doing anything in this deck turn one moving forward. Is it worth playing any card that would mean it could come and play maybe a different surveil land instead of an island? Is there any deck building choice in this, or is it just way too now? If you're going to replace a tap land with an untap land, you might as well just keep this as your tap land.
Yeah, it's like you could maybe cut an island or a plains for a surveil land that has a mountain or a forest type, like, red, white, or green, white. But the issue with that is then you're basically just adding another tap land in to maybe sometimes have the other one come into play untapped. So it ends up just not being worth it.
Right, I believe we saw a stock up there, which I also think is the most expensive card from the set, which is crazy to think of, like uncommon. We're going to get in there for another. Well, I was going to say 2 points of damage, but first we're going to add stuff to the board. I believe that is the little mini Lord in Quest Cooler. Follow up
Yep.
is going to be the Heartfire Hero.
Yeah, Quest Caller is a really sweet card. Not only does it give you a buff to all of your mice, but it also like imagine they printed this card like 10 years ago. Will a lord, a 2 mana lord that has 3 toughness, and not only does it pump, but it also gives you a little bit of scry. That card is definitely a big reason to be playing the mice deck.
Ooh, okay. Day of Judgment's going to come down. That's going to clean up all three of these creatures. One damage is going to go to the dome here for Grayson, in as long as we remember that is with the Heartfire Hero.
Well, I was gonna say 2 damage, but
Oh, does it work like that? I guess it does work
yeah,
like that, right? Yeah,
because it
two.
checks in
Nice.
state based.
And then the follow up is just going to be a cheeky house mouse. Just don't say that 10 times quick. It'll be pretty hard. Commentator's worst nightmare here. Does have a get lost in hand though. So they did come in at the sideboard, like you said.
Yeah, the cheeky house mouse is not exactly the threat that you want after a day of judgment. That one, I mean, that one is good when you have more stuff in play, but as a standalone threat, not exactly the card that Ari's looking for here.
So cute as well, though. Look at it. Is that like a zombie Liliana in the background trying to grab it?
No, but now that you said that, I'm gonna have nightmares about it.
It might be a vampire. I don't know. Chat, help us out on that one.
Maybe.
With the Valley Quest caller, you said like you imagine this printed X amount of years ago. Like this is if I open this pack one, pick one in draft, I'm forcing it. Like that's it. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm forcing this
Oh
archetype.
yeah. Oh,
Baze
it's
is
got
going to
I
come down here. That's just going to gain us some life as well as having a 4/5 body. Good enough. Getting one of the modes out of it.
Yeah, 4/5 pretty good against the 2/1. Math checks out.
How about against a Get Lost? And then we get to turn this little, I'm going to say it multiple times because I like the sound of it, cheeky house mouse sideways and get 2 damage in.
Get Lost is really nice against the Omniscience deck too, because they don't really have a lot of creatures, so it's going to be hard to find a target for those maps. I guess Grayson could just, this game has been developing a little slow for kind of sort of
Very slow.
for Ari's side. So if Grayson just has land and the Meringue River region, just kind of fire that off, bounce the cheeky house mouse, get a 6 power flyer, but we're not going to go ahead and do that. We're going to play a Dragon Storm instead.
I'm looking if we've got any ways of kind of like rebuilding drawing cards in our deck over here on our side. Doesn't look like we do outside of, the Emberheart Challenger and being able to trigger that each
Oh,
turn. Other than that, we don't really have it.
well,
But
I guess we're done.
did we just do the thing? We
Yeah,
just done the
discarded
thing.
Omniscience and then Abuelo's Awakening it. So we're gonna see if we can get to see the combo. Now, Ari does have some mana untapped, and there is a Get Lost in hand. So Get Lost could theoretically kill the Omniscience, but if Grayson has
Ooh.
a counter spell, which he doesn't, okay.
I was going to get you to talk through what is it we're actually trying to look at here, but having double get lost makes sense because we haven't been doing anything. We've got 3 cards in our hand, 5 mana on the board, and all we've been able to do is get this house mouse on the board. It means there's got to be something in the grip. Like, what would we be holding up? Could be monstrous rages. Maybe we would have fired that off a little sooner. Not entirely sure here. 2 mana. That's gonna Here comes the Heart Challenger. That's going to be 4 damage coming across, so chipping away a little bit more at Grayson's who's got a rebuild, but that Omniscience is still in the bin, remember.
Yeah, and Grayson drew a Beza for turn. So even if he can't combo off, we're gonna, I believe, get full value out of this Beza, the life and the tokens. and that'll be nice to kind of clean up this board a little bit.
So you've been telling you've been playing a lot of standard recently. What's the deck?
Hmm.
What's your favorite deck to play?
Well, my favorite deck is not necessarily what I think is the best deck. Those are two different things.
What's
My
your favorite deck to
favorite
play?
my favorite deck to play is probably, I think I like the Gruul Delirium deck a lot.
Ooh, I don't know if I've seen that one. Here comes one of the only creature in the deck, the River Regent, on the actual body side of it. So it is a 6/7 flyer that gets to bounce. Is it 2 permanents when it comes into play? There it is.
Yeah,
Target
well,
2 overnight.
tech
Yeah,
technically here 3 because we got to pick up the Dragonstorm too. But yeah,
value.
bounces 2 permanents.
The value train is real. No, we've got to rebuild, but we do have I think we've got 4, maybe 5 cards in hand here for Ari. So is able to deploy a lot back onto the board. Remember, some of them do have haste, but getting through a 6/7 body is going to be hard, even with things like Monstrous Rage. The mouse, we're going to use the other. It's going to go on a little adventure here. We're going to cast the Squeak By.
I was just gonna say, don't ask me to tell you what the name of the spell is, because I wouldn't be able to tell you.
It's Squeak By. Why would it? Squeak by a cheeky house mouse. Gives target creature you control +1/+1 until end of turn. It can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater this turn. Maybe we were meant to sit on that. Maybe we were meant to try and wait and get that one big turn from it.
Well, I think the idea for Ari was to try and find something like a Monstrous Rage off of the trigger of Emberheart Challenger, because that would have given Ari a reasonable attack. Um, because okay, hold on. So, oh, right, because it can't be blocked this turn. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, gotcha.
That cheeky little house mouse has got more text on it, my friend.
I'm always used to just giving +1/+1. I always forget the full line of text on it, but yeah, it can't be blocked by creatures of power 3 or greater. So that region little too big for the squeak by.
Also, good news for Grayson. Now got a target for those maps if he wants to try and look at the top of his deck a little bit and see what's going on. Is that that's going to be a temporary lockdown coming down. One of the namesake cards here in standard, very key to stop these low to the ground aggressive decks. It's going to when it enters exile each non-land permanent with converted mana cost at 2 or less until temporary lockdown leaves the board. And remember, we've already used 2 of our get lost, and there's only 2 in the deck. So I don't think we now have a way of getting that off over on Ari's side.
Yeah, the only other way, if Ari kept in the sheltered by ghosts, if he can find a creature and then sheltered by ghosts, the temporary lockdown, which, that could be a decent sequence where you go play the cheeky house mouse, shelter the temp lockdown, get back the challenger and the hero, maybe have a way to target the challenger and kind of go from there. But with Grayson now stabilizing with the Beza up to 8 life and Ari having nothing on the battlefield, this is going to be a tough one here for Ari.
Found another house mouse.
What are we activating? Oh, that's the
land.
land, the Lupin Flower Village. You don't see this
So
one every day.
2 mana, tap it, sacrifice it. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a bat, a bird, a mouse, or a rabbit card from among them and put it into your hands. Then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Didn't see what we took because I was too busy reading it out. You have any idea what they grabbed?
No, I was also reading the card with you, so I didn't quite get a good look. But I believe we hit something. Maybe the chat will tell us in a second. But Grayson untapping here looks like we got the Dragonstorm that we knew about. I think there's a Dispersal and I want to say another dragon in Grayson's hand. So Grayson's still with some good leftovers here.
Yeah, I think we got the tools to close this game out and take us to a game 3. It's just Ari have any lines to be able to get this last point down, couple points of damage in. 8 isn't that much, especially decks with Monstrous Rage. Does potentially could have Boris Charms and Lightning Helixes in the deck as well. We don't actually know how sideboard happening, but the board is pretty gummed up now.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess, given how many cards Ari has seen, that we haven't gone through one yet. I would guess we didn't bring in the Boros Charms. Maybe he brought in a couple copies just as some cheeky burn spells to have here or there. But I think Ari has got quite a bit of lands left over. Rockface Village is not too bad if he can pair that with an Emberheart Challenger.
Yeah, I love that little comic. I gotta say, I play a lot of mono red and stand at the minute. I love that little like interaction that can happen. Also, just the threat that any of the sort of the creatures I play could end up coming in with haste that you think wouldn't have haste. We do have a blast zone over on Grayson's side though, so we are kind of happy and ready. But that's just going to be enough. We're not going to be able to get the damage across, especially when there's lethal on the board for Grayson. We're going to a game number 3, mate.
We are, and that was, a sort of a good showcase of Grayson. Ari's draw was not the best, right? Had a little bit of a slower start,
Hmm.
didn't quite get enough stuff in the battlefield, and then Grayson was kind of just able to sort of take over with the Beza into the Dragon, into another Beza. Had the lockdown at a key point, and really didn't even need the combo that game. That's why this Omniscience deck is so good, is that it has the ability to board into a more controlling deck. Maybe not. Maybe this isn't even the matchup Grayson would normally do that in. But the deck is just so flexible. It has the capability of doing both.
Do you think like we talk about it? I don't think it is, but what we're going to talk about is the over sideboarding. Like we weren't able to get on the board and apply a load of pressure there because we were stuck with get losts in our hand. There was only two of them. We did see both of them, but if those two were potentially creatures or hastes or pump spells, would we have been able to turn that 8 life down to a more reasonable 1 or 2 and give ourselves out of something like a cheeky house mouse being able to give it unblockable? Is it where do we draw the line on cards to from in our main deck to sideboarding cards? Is what I think what I'm trying to get at here is like how do we get around not over sideboarding?
Yeah, it's tough because if you look at Ari's deck list, he probably cut some of the 3 drops, some of the cards that are slower in this matchup, like Mabel, Heir to Cragflame, or Seedglaive Mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Likely cut one of those cards for the Get Losts. And knowing that Grayson very likely has 4 copies of Temporary Lockdown in his deck, and given how low of a curve Ari has, you can't really afford to not bring in the Get Losts, because if there's a situation where, he has 3 creatures, Grayson lockdowns, and that the Get Lost could be the difference between winning and losing that game. So I think you have to bring in the Get Losts, but other than that, like I said, I can't imagine Ari brought in much else. Really, probably just those 2 sideboard cards, and kind of just got unfortunate drawing in them both.
Both also plus like 5 land or whatever it is. It's not
Yeah.
ideal. This that only really wants 3 maximum, as you said, only 3 drops in the deck. But now it's going to be on the play. Might actually start with a 1 drop for this aggro deck at this point. We haven't seen it in the last 2 games. Grayson's going to have the obviously be on the back foot, really going to look for those temporary lockdowns, those days of judgments, things to try and interact nice and early to slow Ari down. Because as soon as we get to that mid to late game, I see as early as turn 4, Grayson could run away with this match and be, 1-0 today starting off and maybe going back to back over the weekend, which is a feat that hasn't happened many times, but it's a very exclusive list to be part of.
Yeah. Crazy. I believe the last time we saw it was Dom, right?
Was it Don that did
I
it?
think. Yeah, it was Dom who won. I know he won Saturday with Amulet. I can't remember what he won Sunday with.
Probably
You
some.
remember?
I want to say
It was
it was
stand.
a domain deck, but I could be wrong.
I can't remember if it was Pioneer or Standard. Maybe we can get somebody to confirm that. But I know
Where's our
I'm
fact
pretty sure
checkers?
Dom was the last back to back. Yeah, somebody fact check us.
All right. Ari not happy, didn't like the hand. I think it was all white mana and no red. And of course, obviously, the majority of this deck is tends to be red for the aggressive part of it. So he's going to throw that back, go down to 6. Grayson likes the keep. Going to go with them. Chat saying it was Legacy and it was Land's Turbo deck.
I remember that now. Yep. Okay. Got it.
We appreciate chat, man. Like, what would we do without Twitch chat? Like, literally, think about it. Do you remember before Twitch chat? I don't. I literally never remember a time before Twitch chat. It's not worth remembering, chat. You're all awesome. We appreciate you being here on this Sunday, I guess morning for most of you. Let us know where you're listening from. If you're in Europe like me, it's definitely the afternoon at this point. But if you're over
I was
in,
gonna say, what time is it over there?
it is 15:34 where I am. So
Okay.
it's getting a little bit late, and they will finish around about 8-9 o'clock by the time we pass over to the next 2 commentators. Mr. Is it Mason and Ross? I believe
I
taking it
believe
from
it's
us,
Mason and Ross. Yeah.
closing out the show. Right, here we go. Cavern of Souls. Nice and easy. Can name mice with that one. And then we're starting off with a 1 drop at last. That one is Flower Foot Sword Master. Great little
Mm-hmm.
art on it. What is he
Yeah.
wielding?
First time we've seen this card, and specifically in this deck, this card gets out of control pretty quickly, especially if you can go, follow this turn up with 2 more 1 drops, and the next turn start targeting the Swordmaster. That gives you sort of a pump on the whole squad. And I think we have 2 1 drops in hand. looks like we have. Okay.
Away to target it, give it +1/+0, give it trample, get another card deeper, and get it bounced back to our grip.
Ooh, yeah, that's brutal. I mean, I guess for Ari, if now that that's getting bounced, if you have a third land, you can just go ahead and play the third land and then offspring the Swordmaster next turn. But that's not even necessarily what Ari wants to do with his turn 3, because I think looking at his hand, I believe there's another Swordmaster and a Manifold Mouse. So I think his plan was, maybe deploy the Manifold Mouse, double strike on the Swordmaster. But now we don't have the ability to do that.
Let's see how we're going to start off. We are going to start off with a Heartfire Herald, and then we're going to follow up with the Swordmaster again, getting there for our 2 points of damage. So we're kind of setting up no land drop here, which means we do have all spells in hand. End of turn here, moment of truth. This is where things start getting scary. Will an Omniscience go in the graveyard? No, it will not.
Does it change the equation? And this is kind of the thing. This is the thing about the Omniscience deck, where sometimes it's firing in all cylinders. You go turn 2, Dragonstorm, discard the Omni, turn 3, lockdown, turn 4, combo. But then there's some games where you just don't find the Omniscience in the top half of your deck. That happens a decent amount of the time. There is a lot of variance with regards to this Omniscience deck and how often you can actually put it into the graveyard. And it looks like, I think Grayson's got a Dragonstorm, but we're going to go for Baze instead.
Baze is going to come down, giving us the life. No extra voice coming along with it because it's one apiece. Ari's very it's constrained on white mana, it looks like, at this point. I can see a couple of white cards in the grip, but not the ability to deploy them.
How about a second mountain?
Just what we needed. Okay.
Which one? That
is going to be a Mabel.
That's maybe? Mabel, right? Okay. Yeah.
I think maybe it's Mabel. It's either Mabel or it's the Mentor. I'm going to go with Mabel because
maybe it's Mabel.
I don't think they. Well, maybe they. I don't know. Alternate art cards commentary. It makes our life a lot harder, man. I tell you.
Yeah. Well, really the thing is, I think there is an alt art Seedglaive Mentor too. That's why I was a little confused because I think they look pretty similar, at least from this distance. But in any case, Mabel, we haven't seen Mabel yet, and I wasn't sure if Ari was going to go ahead and keep that in because it is a little slow, but it does give you a very, very consistent way of triggering Valiant. So it gives you an equipment that you can equip over to the Swordmaster, trigger Valiant, and it gives you a little bit of pump on the Swordmaster as well.
That's the Rolling Dragonstorm, correct? That I see being played?
Yep.
Yep, Rolling Dragonstorm. So that's one of the newer cards from the Dragons set. When it ends, draw 2 cards, discard 1. That's one of our ways of getting Omniscience into the bin. And whenever you or when you control a dragon that enters, return this enchantment to its owner's hands to get a little bit more value if needs be. Pretty cool art.
Oh yeah, love the Dragonstorm, especially in this deck where the blue dragon is so perfect because the 4 mana spell on the blue dragon is draw 3, discard 1. You want to put cards in your graveyard with Omniscience anyways. The 6 mana bounce spell gives you a lot of time, re-triggers your Dragonstorm to go a little bit deeper in. So it's just kind of the perfect combination of cards for a deck like this.
It hurts when you say the blue dragon's a perfect one. It should all be red and nothing else. Okay, like I am an old school D&D player. Red dragons are always the best. Come at me, chat. Anyway, back to this. So when we're talking about different card arts and pronouncing different names, you wait till this Final Fantasy sets out and I start mispronouncing all these names of everybody's favorite characters because I've never played any Final Fantasy game. People are gonna come after me. And
did you see the spoilers yesterday?
When they were coming out, we were live on here, so I didn't get to look at too many of them. I saw that Ragavan's getting a preprint as an alt art or something, or at least I think it is. It could be a fan made one. It looks the same to me. I'm not entirely sure if it was a real card or not. I just know there's a lot of hype behind it. A lot of people are really happy that set's coming out, and of course, will be in standard, so everyone's going to get to play them straight off the bat. So we got a little bit of a combat going on here. Did we just equip something? Am I missing? What have we got that can equip in this deck?
We equipped the Crag Flame, the Crag Flame that we got off the Mabel. So I believe what Ari did is we targeted the Swordmaster with Rockface Village to trigger the Valiant that would have made it a 3 power, and then the Crag Flame we equipped that's 4 power plus the Mabel is 5. So I believe Ari is attacking with a 5/3 into the Beza. So hypothetically, if Grayson were to block, it would be a trade.
Not gonna lie to you, when I looked at Mabel, I just looked at everything it's +1/+1, and that was it. I didn't read the second part of the text. The fact it comes
makes
along
it equip it.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Clag Fame, a legendary
It's
close
it's a
equipment.
little expensive. The Crag Flame is 2 mana to equip, so it's a little pricey when you're trying to trigger Valiant. But I mean, in spots like this where Ari doesn't have a lot else going on, does give him a little bit of ways to keep the gas flowing.
But at the minute, while there's not too much pressure going on, Grayson does have time to kind of set up, turn the wheels. Looks like we've got step one of the combo being the way to get it out with the awakening. We just need to try and find that omniscience, get it into the graveyard somehow. Lots of
What's that
options.
card underneath the base in the graveyard? It looks like an altar card, but I don't think that's an omniscience, right? I
Uh,
can't quite tell.
if it is, we're just going to land win, aren't we? Oh, maybe we don't have the land
Yeah.
drop.
I don't think it's an omniscience. I'm pretty sure he didn't find one last turn.
4 mana. We're going to go with the Manifold Mouse with the Offspring. So hopefully if this resolves, yep, and it looks like it will, we can target a mouse, we can give it double strike, we can target it and give it trample as well. So that's going to be a nice chunk of damage coming across. I believe that's 6 damage. 3/3 double striker.
Yeah, double strike the Mabel.
Chat
Oh,
saying that there is an omniscience in the yard.
okay, yeah. I was like, I'm pretty sure there was an alt art card, and there it is. So with Ari tapped out, assuming Grayson has anything here, we are probably done. But we'll get to see how the combo works at least.
Just in case anyone doesn't play EDH or doesn't play Legacy, talk to me about this card. What does it do? Why is it so powerful? Why is there a deck built around it?
Omniscience?
Yes.
Well, you see, Will, part of the game of playing Magic is paying mana for your spells. And it turns out when you don't have to pay mana for any of your spells and you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh, that's pretty good.
So you're telling me I can just not use any of my mana and just play everything I want at any point I want? Seems
Yeah,
good.
it
Seems
just
good.
turns your deck into a Yu-Gi-Oh deck. They don't have mana, so.
So how do we win?
So the win condition here, at least the one that Grayson is going for, is you set up Founding the Third Path, which is the saga with read ahead. You can skip to the chapter that mills target player for 4 cards. You target your opponent, and then once you combine that with 2 of the dragons that bounce permanents, you go put the Founding into play the dragon, bounce the Founding, replay the Founding, mill them for 4. Play your second dragon and bounce the first dragon and the Founding, and you can repeat that infinitely to just mill your opponent out.
Hey, Boris Chum came in.
Ooh. Not great when your opponent's at 19, though.
I understand it. I mean, we did see 2 Day of Judgments get cast. Is a closed decklist tournament, so you may be thinking there's potentially there's more than one of those in the list. There isn't because we've got access to it. Unfortunately, here for Ari, might okay. Going to try to cast the Swordmaster with the Offspring. Think we've got a way to change the equation in hand, but decide to. How does that change the equation work with Offspring? Does it change the CMC
Um,
completely, or
no, it's like kicker. It's an alternate cost. So I'm pretty confident you can still change the equation because it says counter target spell with mana value 2 or less. So both the Swordmaster and the other offspring, the Manifold Mouse, would both still be 1 or 2 mana respectively.
all right? It looks like we drew a Emberheart Challenger off the top, so we could play. Oh, also, I've just realized that there's a Cavern of Souls. That's why we didn't counter it. I'm an idiot. It's fine.
I also missed that too. There you go.
It's
What's fun? Yeah, we were talking this whole game about Ari not having white source. The only white source of mana has been that cavern.
does have the Emberheart plus Boris Charm, and I think that might be a cheeky house mouse at the back of the grip there. And we're going to go with the Emberheart. Makes sense because all of our mice get +1/+1 currently. If we
What's awkward
target,
about
go on.
What's awkward about the cheeky house mouse is for Ari against that Beza, the spell you would want to play the spell half of it. But Cavern of Souls, even though it makes white mana for mice, you can't make the white mana for the spell half of it.
Ooh, Rockface Village is going to get activated here. That's going to target the Swordmaster. That's going to trigger. That's going to give all the mice +1/+0 until end of turn.
That's a lot of triggers.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everything. Why not? Does the Emberheart hunt?
So
The Emberheart's 2,
Ember Heart's only
3,
4,
4.
right?
Yeah,
Oh no, it's
that's it.
5 because of the Mabel. Right, the challenger is 5, right? Because it's 2 base, 1 from the Mabel is 3, and then 2 from both Swordmasters. Or wait, no,
No,
only
because we
one
only,
sword master
yeah, 'cause we
triggered,
only
right?
targeted one sword master.
Ah, right. Okay. So yeah, I think we just lost that. Maybe we miscounted,
Maybe we're just trying to
or
get as
maybe we
much
just wanted to push
damage
some
in as far
damage
as we
in.
can. Yeah, but I say with a Boris Charm in hand, eventually we'll draw a white source. Maybe we think that that can get us across the line, going 4 points to the dome. Maybe just passing the turn back. Grace is still not doing anything.
Yeah, this is such a weird
Another
spot.
Boris Charm off the top.
Yeah, can we Cavern of Souls name instant or source name instant, please? Can we do
We
that?
only have to get Grace down to 8 now. Basically, we just made an
Well,
extra
we got
4
to get him
damage to
down to
ourselves,
8 and draw white mana.
and make sure he's got nothing. And of course, hope he never casts that change the equation. Only a few things to do. Don't worry about it. It's
Draw the third Boros Charm. We'll figure it out. Doesn't
we'll
really
get
have a
there.
good attack here into the Beza, too. We can pump the Mabel to 4, but that does not get past the Beza. I'm interested as to, why we, maybe, like you said, maybe Ares was just trying to push some damage last turn. But
If we were
potentially,
doing that, I think I would have attacked with the Mabel as well. Like I feel like if I was getting
yeah.
what's it really doing at this point? It's just a lord. I'd
And
rather have the extra points of damage.
that Grayson's probably going to block the challenger in that spot, too.
Oh
How
my
about a
god!
third Boros Charm, Will?
You called it. You asked. You said, "How about a third
All
one?"
right.
It's fine.
Now we just need a white source.
He's showing the camera. Just realized it's
Love it. Love it. There you
Hey.
go. All right. Now we got fireworks.
Okay, so we could fire one off a turn now, and that would still only pick Grayson down to 8. We could give the Mabel double strike, which
See, the awkward part about giving Mabel double strike is if Grayson has any interaction. And the thing is, because he has omniscience in play, if he had any sort of draw spell, he would have been playing them.
oh
If he
yeah.
had any creature, he would have been playing them. So you have to assume his hands all interaction anyways.
How important is that to be able to read your opponent? Like, you basically said that like, if he had any way to draw, he would have done it. If he had this, he would have done it. So what's in the hand? You can assume it's probably some sort of counter magic / removal for the optimal time.
Ooh, love this. He's gonna bounce the lockdown that has 3 Dragon Storms under it. So now Grayson's gonna be able to draw 6, discard 3, and with the omniscience in play, should be able to find the kill here.
She's telling me that this is a good line.
It's pretty good. It's not bad.
There's I think that's another dragon we found.
Yeah, he got the founding and the dragon.
There's the saga. At least Ari's having fun. He sees the amusement of drawing the 3 Boris charms in a row.
Yeah, and he sees the founding target you. Ari's like,
Here's the combo: bounce, 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 bounce. So one last time, talk us through it, Doom. As Grayson is going to take this one down and continue how he was yesterday with a winning record.
Yeah, so founding milieu for 4, dragon bounce the founding milieu for 4, dragon bounce the dragon in the founding milieu for 4, dragon bounce the founding. You get the idea.
I understand how this works. So basically, with them, you pass the turn to Ari. Ari's got no cards in the library. Can't draw, will lose the game. One of the the different win cons that there are here in Magic the Gathering. We don't have to just do the 20 points of life. There are other ways to win, and that one's it's like winning with style points, really, right? I'm being told we've got a time shifted backup match though. So as much as you want to see our beautiful faces, because I do have a beard now. I don't know if you noticed, Doom. I've grew
It's
a beard
nice.
now.
It's looking nice.
The king in his finest form said, "Well, you can grow a beard now." I was like, "Oh, thank you very much, the king." We're going to get down to our second match. We got Domain versus Orzhov Pixies. Talk me through both of these two decks and what they're trying to do.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting matchup here. It's funny because I think, we talked a lot about prowess and we talked about how the best card against prowess is temporary lockdown. Both of these decks are featuring 4 copies of lockdown. So they're trying to beat the bad guy, not be the bad guy. And they're doing it in slightly different ways. So Harrison playing Domain is just trying to, play a bunch of kill spells in the early turns, stuff like Ride's End, Sunfall, Day of Judgment, Lockdown, clean up the board with Leyline Binding, and then set up a turn where you go, have an Overlord, play a Zur, and then kind of close the game out from there. Oliver is playing the Orzhov Pixie deck, which is very similar to Esper, where it's playing Hopeless Nightmare to get the hand down and kind of control the hand size for Harrison, and then the stuff like Pixie to bounce the Nightmare and replay it. But the interesting thing about Orzhov Pixie is that it can utilize Lockdown in a very interesting and strange way that not a lot of other people can. Where if you say lock down a Pixie and a say Oliver plays a lockdown and hits a Pixie and a Nightmare under it. You can then pick up your own lockdown with another pixie or perhaps a Sun Pro Kieran, use the pixie that came back to bounce the Kieran, and then set up this loop where you can just lock down, loop them with Nightmare every single turn.
Well, we've got Overlord of the Huntwoods coming down. Pretty much the one that had, we've said, had the most hype behind it because it does generate the everywhere land, which means we can tap for everything. This is going to help ramp Harrison out here. End the turn on over on Oliver's side. We're going to flash in the 2-1 bounce back. The Nightmare, as you said, try and get some incremental value from that. And it's very much like a nickel and dime type deck, isn't it, that Oliver's playing? Like, do this, bounce it back, do it again, to come back. Because eventually discarding cards. Some people will get greedy and discard lands early, and then they'll be a little bit stuck on lands, or you're going to discard your spells to keep your lands and hope to live off the top of your deck. It's very like hit or miss, especially while Oliver's kind of going wide with these flying creatures, getting that bit of chip damage in. And if the life totals are to go from anything, I only get 6 life.
Yeah, what's interesting about this too is Harrison discarded a copy of Zur, which signifies to me he either has a backup one or without having land 5 is not, interested in trying to top deck a land here because I believe the last card he kept was Beza. Did end up drawing the untapped land too, so maybe not necessarily an incorrect play, but sort of maybe got a little bit punished because if we had kept the Zur, we could have animated the Overlord. But here we get to Beza to gain a little bit of life, make a couple of blockers here, and we do get a card because Oliver has more cards in hand than us. And yeah, just trying to stabilize. But yeah, the triple Nightmare, double Pixie / Kieran draw, those are really hard to fight through because not only, like you mentioned, Harrison is effectively stripped of all his resources, he's also just taken 10 damage off of all that.
Well, this would be a great time for the temporary lockdown as you're talking about, right? We're getting there 4 points down, play temporary lockdown, then we bounce it back, get all our triggers to the Nightmares again, and that's basically GG.
Yeah, imagine lockdown would get 3 nightmares and the 2 creatures, and then if you bounce your own lockdown, you would get the 3 nightmare triggers, and then both the Pixie and the Kieran could just bounce 2 more nightmares.
We're doing it. We're doing it. We're
Oh
doing it.
yeah, let's do it.
Style points. I like it. So everything's going to go on temporary lockdown. Normally, you would say this isn't a great line. This is not good when you take out 5 of your own permanents with the spell that you cast. But Harrison's going to need a way to gain some life this turn. Sees double land. That's not going to do it. We're going to get in there for 4 points while we can. But any bounce spell here for Oliver is going to mean that we're going to get all 3 of those nightmares coming down. There's the Pixie. There's the scoop. That's game number 1 going to Oliver on the left of our screen.
Yeah, it's so interesting too, this Orzhov Pixie deck, because you don't normally think, well, if you have a temporary lockdown, you want to kill 5 of your own permanents. But because the way that the lockdown interacts with Nightmare and the fact that you can bounce your own nightmares, it just creates this infinite loop, and it gives this Orzhov Pixie deck so much value.
Right, well, we're going to go into the sideboard games now. We're going to join it live in game number 3. Harrison was able to take down game number 2. Both players mulling down to 6. While they kind of look at these opening hands, we're going to go through the sideboards quickly. I'm going to start over on Oliver's side. We've got Duress. We've got Emerald, Saint of Dusk.
Alenda.
Is it Alenda? Is that how I say it?
Alenda, yeah.
Exhort, Get Lost, a Flanker, Lauren, Unholy Annex, and Rest in Peace. Is any of these taking your fancy against this domain deck?
Yeah, Duress is fantastic. Exercise and Get Lost are great to be able to handle the Overlords and the Zers and whatnot.
And then we got going across on the domain side. Of course, we were able to take down that game number 2. So we're going to have some spicy stuff in here. We've got an Atraxa, some Bazers, a Day of Judgment, Elspeth Smite, and Elspeth Storm Slaver, Heritage. That is definitely the big Nissa, but it's in Phyrexian for me, so I can't read it. But it's the big Phyrexian Nissa, a Negate, a High Noon, and a Patchwork Formation. What do you like out of that?
Yeah, I mean, Harrison has some interesting options. You might think you want to go towards something like Atraxa because if your hand is getting stripped, Atraxa is a good way to refill. But it's actually kind of hard to get to 7 mana against a deck that's Hopeless Nightmaring you over and over again. So you actually kind of want stuff that's a little bit cheaper, like on the side of Beza. I think Beza is probably Harrison's best card in the sideboard here. Other than that, you could maybe go towards something like Elspeth Smite to pick off an early Pixie. Or maybe something like, guess you really don't want to go towards Negate. Day of Judgment could help clean up the Pixies and the Kierans, but not a ton here for Harrison.
I've already played 3 Hopeless Nightmares so far this game, which
that's just what this deck does every single turn.
One good card to kind of counteract that, I guess, is the beans that we see on the board now. So every time we play a card of CMC 5 or greater, we do get to draw a card, which is going to be ideal because when we start playing those overlords, even if it is for the impending side of it, we still get to draw. Also, we've got access to things like our leyline bindings, and if we get to the Sunfall type eras, that's where we can start trying to turn the corner and potentially pulling away with this game. There's the forest that we needed for our 4th land drop. That's going to be the Overlord of Mistmoors coming down. Not only are we going to draw a card, we're going to make 2/2/1 flyers, which is ideal against these flyers on the other side. Perfect blockers.
Yeah, and I believe Harrison's lands. I can't quite get a good look, but I'm pretty sure it's green, white, green, white, green, white, black, white. So I don't believe we have access to blue mana currently for Zur.
Correct. Is there like
Okay.
the key card in this match? Like it's that or bust,
Yeah.
basically.
Oh
We're
yeah,
gonna
Zur is crazy. Imagine here, right, where it's like this game is sort of close. Harrison's, life total is getting a little bit low, especially with Annex plus the Demon here. That's going to make a 6/6 and start draining Harrison for 2 a turn. But if you just able to go untap blue source, Zur, animate the Overlord, you gain 7 life, make 2 more blockers, and it's basically going to be impossible for Oliver to sort of have any lethal push with that 7 life buffer and 2 more blockers.
Demon's going to get made, as you said. That's going to be the second half of it. Ritual Chamber, 2 life, end of turn, going to get drained and gained, as well as another card as well, just to keep a little bit of his hand a little bit more topped up. On the flip side, we're going to play Overlord ourselves. That is going to be able to give us the blue mana, at least for next turn if we need
Next
to.
turn. If there is a next turn, right?
Yeah, fair one. We're at 6 life. We do get to draw a card as well, remember. We've still got the 2... what tokens are they? They are insect tokens on the other
Insects.
side. And we get to play another beans. So that's 2 now. One problem I always found in this deck is there's a chance I was going to mill myself out when the wheels started turning and burning.
Worth noting here, no interaction for Harrison. So if Oliver has the ability to, he actually only has to clear 1 blocker because
Oh, double Zer in hand.
yeah, well, it's all going to come down to whether or not Oliver can remove a creature because 1 blocker killed, chump block the demon, Harrison goes to 2, and then dies to the Annex and end phase. Right now, Oliver can only get Harrison down to 2. 2 blockers, 1 gets through plus the Annex, so that is not enough for lethal, and that should do it, I
That's
believe.
enough, right? Being able to give a creature -2/2, get one of these insects off the board, turn everything sideways. We chump block the demon. 4 damage comes across, but because there is a demon, that means that 2 extra points at the end of the turn will go across and reduce Harrison down to 0. So congrats to Oliver taking that one down. It did really good, man. But then I suppose if you cast multiple nightmares against the big mana deck and don't let them kind of do their thing, you're going to probably run away with that game.
Yeah, I mean, that matchup really just comes down to whether or not the Pixie player has the Nightmare. If they
Mhm.
like, imagine that game, for example, if Oliver doesn't have the turn 1 Nightmare and has the Pixie plus the Kieran that he's not doing that much with. But when you are able to go Nightmare into Pixie bounce, into Kieran bounce, you get such a fast clock and drain your opponent out of resources. And that's sort of exactly what the Orsov deck wants to do.
I feel like they always just they draw 5 cards because they always have those 2 cards every single time I play against that deck. They always seem to have it. But what we're going to do is we're going to step away and have a short break because that is the end of round number 1. We'll be back with round number 2 shortly here at the NRG series.